last night, I couldn't sleep. I was trying to fall asleep and I was just feeling so wide awake in the dark room. So I took half a sleeping pill and I fell asleep, but I only slept probably 8 hours. I don't think I got to sleep until 1. Woke up at 9 because I'm going to work. And I was driving just feeling kind of angry, so I'm still stuck at the level of consciousness of anger. But then it was sort of morphing and I was feeling like the power of it and feeling like moved to action by anger versus festering in it. And so I was sort of, I don't know, like enjoying the anger or like neutral about it as opposed to resisting it. So it changed in a way, like it made me realize, hey, in a month or less, I could go back to the island, or you know, when I go to California, if I go, maybe I can try and never come back, or just keep going on a journey. Like go on a journey, see what happens. And so my mind was a little bit more focused on that. I do want to see Celine Dion, and I might do this online meditation program because an enlightened master I met years ago is coming back into town. And I was thinking of one day traveling to see him just to be like, hey, what's up? And I do think this struggle moving in and out of paradise is going into paradise, aka kind of mania, and falling out of it, depression. I think it can eventually stabilize in being in paradise consciousness all the time. I don't know if there's other things to resolve outwardly or if there's something that needs to be resolved inwardly, but he has this online meditation course and it's probably about $500 Canadian, so it's a lot. And then there's a chance I might not even be here in September when he arrives. But after I get my car fixed and do my write-up, I'm going to probably sign up for that because I'm trying not to pile too many things on at the same time. And then, yeah, it's all a manifestation of my inner state. I know that it's my responsibility. But I think with the whole bipolar condition, it's not as easily resolved as oh, snap out of it, now I'm fine inwardly. Like things make us mad, and when we don't have the right living environment, it adds stress. And I think that conversation I had with my mom was kind of not good in a way. I think it bothered me, and that's why I couldn't sleep. It's because I'm sleeping in the same energy field. I just explained my world, and now I wrote it in such a way that somebody else can look at it. You know, I've talked to myself all these years from the perspective of maybe helping other people somehow, maybe not with my daily blah, but with something. But again, I had a conversation with somebody who is not a peer. You know, that conversation on that phone could be used against me to hospitalize me. One could say, look what this so-and-so said. They're delusional. They're crazy because they're talking about surviving death or blah, blah, blah. So, again, it wasn't the right audience. But sometimes when I get probed in things, it's hard to be quiet. That's the thing. Like if somebody came up to me and asked me about my symptoms, I would tell them about my symptoms. If somebody came up to me and said, tell me about the world that you experience, I would tell them. So it just sort of depends who is there. And I had a conversation with my counselor, and they were open to possibility of other worlds or using the metaphors I was using, whether they saw it that way or not. You know, maybe they did have touched something themselves at some point. So, and then I talked to a friend later and I was telling them same sort of stuff, and they didn't really understand fully because I was describing impossible things. but they still were able to speak to me in that type of languaging and not dismiss it. So and I was saying yesterday, I think that when I was on the island, that was coming into mind, like, how do I tell people this kind of thing? They don't want to know. But maybe if I say it, people can only absorb what they can absorb, so there's no harm in saying it. And it makes me feel more empowered to speak the truth of what I've experienced versus, saying, oh, I have bipolar. But, I in a way, I do have this bipolar up and down thing. And when I was driving in, I was drinking coffee for the first time. Just a small one, but I kind of want more. And I was listening to music, and the music started sounding better, and then all of a sudden I felt like I was in a better state. So, things that we take in from the outside do change our state, like coffee or whatever. And I feel like right now, like boosting myself during the day, I took 1,500 milligrams of tyrosine, and I think I took 2 SAMe, 400 milligrams. And I took, I don't know if I took a bit of uridine. So those are sort of the anti-suicidal things, which I assume give a boost because suicide is a low state. But I do find myself thinking suicidal thoughts a little bit. But then I also feel this sense of like how this ego wants attention. It wants negative attention. Even this conflict having, like with some of my close people in my life, this resistance is like the self wanting to assert itself in a negative way, because the positive way that I am is kind of strange. It's non-linear. It's kind of spontaneous, and I think when I'm around people that know me and they feed off that for a while, then eventually they get mad towards me. So I will drop my state in consciousness because they're not comfortable keeping up with the change. So I think I need to leave and ground in whatever. I don't know what I'm talking about. I think I need to embrace the up and down and maybe show that energy more, because I've been trying to keep the energy down. Before I had a crisis, I was just practicing sitting around, not really doing much of anything, sitting on the earth, giving the energy back to the earth. And then I had the crisis, and now I'm still laying low, and I just want to be like, screw it, I'm going to take the boosters and I'm going to go for it, even if whatever that does, if it builds something that needs to break down more, like a self, and I go through a worse psychosis because of it. Maybe that's the next test, because I laid low this time. The psychosis or whatever it was, the crisis, the death and rebirth wasn't that bad. And so now I'm sort of at the anger level of consciousness, so I need to, and probably pride. So I need to move up to courage. And maybe the courage comes from just accepting being sometimes, like using the energy of anger to get up to courage, as opposed to hoping it just naturally changes. I'm not sure. So what I'm realizing here is that I got through the crisis, the worst of it. I went through the pain, the shame, the anger, the pain, the shame, the grief, the despair. I'm talking about Dr. David Hawkins' levels of consciousness. And now I'm sort of up at anger. And instead of being sort of angry at, using that anger energy as an outside movement, like a force to do stuff with, and realizing I got through that crisis. I kind of know how to use these supplements now through a crisis, and also how to get myself into the best kind of situation to go through the crisis. So I feel what the universe is telling me is now it's time to take action and not try to stay at the lower states of energy, but try to take action. And I am taking action, but sort of go back to feeling like one is on a mission to create something. I've had the vision many times. Oftentimes I write it up. I didn't write it up last time, but now maybe I can talk to people about it. And I have met several people lately that could be helpful in, say, moving towards building the Dream Center, which I was told many years ago by a supposedly almost homeless man to build. And when I've been in extreme states, I've so-called dissociated and felt like a homeless person. And I do feel like a homeless person right now. Like there are reasons why my family could decide to ditch me at any moment. And that could happen. It could happen to anyone. Once someone loses the support of their family, if they're not really functioning well, they can end up on the street. So I'm feeling like a wanderer in terms of I'm trying to rid myself of attachment. And I think this anger is myself trying to hold on to some kind of attachment so that I don't feel alone. When I am alone, I'm alone in what I was told to create. You know, and I've started to talk to people about it a little bit from a place of power. And I have felt at times that the homeless people saved me, or a homeless man saved me at one time. So I'm here because of that homeless person or homeless people, the consciousness of homeless people, which is way different than we think it is. So maybe if I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, in quotes, it won't implode. So we'll see how that goes. I feel like I need to start focusing on that because I have felt like this whole testing the vitamins and doing this and that to keep myself safe and comfortable is all very self-centered. And I'll still do those things, but I've sort of gotten the handle of it and the hold of it. So it's time to change. And I think it's time to embody my mania, like act kind of like a manic. And those gestures could be what gives that energy as opposed to waiting for the energy to create the gestures that one would embody, the traits they would embody in mania. Not being afraid to change people, because if I'm really weird and spontaneous and crazy, people get a little bit uncomfortable. But I'm trying to keep myself comfortable, but that keeps me enclosed in the perspective of a self that isn't there. So being creative. So we'll see. I'm just feeling this today. It could change, but I feel like kind of going for it. And that could land me in the hospital because I'm being more energetic, which could lead to people interpreting me as being manic, which will eventually collapse. Oh well. Yeah, we'll see. It's 12:07 a.m. and it's really raining outside. It was kind of scary to get home. The highway was hard to see, and I'm not used to driving this car in the rain and the dark, and there's a bit more glare on the windows for sure. So I'm going to see if they can put some kind of anti-glare on the front windshield when they replace it. But anyway, the light switch flipped and I'm definitely elevated, and I feel like love is speaking to me in my brain. I don't want to use the M word that ends in ania. But I feel it's this energy of love that one can't ask for, but sometimes does descend upon one. And it's saying things like, there is no you and me, there is no they, there's only we. And it's saying, you know, the whole history of humanity and religion, what religion really is beyond what we've created as concepts and rituals, is written in our DNA. Like, I'm not original, I'm a human being that, you know, evolved through time or was created or whatever. And we all have that millions of years in common. And then we take these words and opinions in our memory to feel special and separate, when it's like this little vibration of nothingness. We're all virtually the same. And have been this whole time. And then we're fighting over these perceived differences that aren't real. And it's also sort of telling me how the power of love is so much more than the power of fear. So I think fear is on the level of 140 on Dr. David Hawkins' scale of consciousness, and love starts at 500. So it's not 500 minus 140, which is I think 360. It's not 360 degrees difference. It's actually 360 zeros, because it's a logarithmic scale. So fear would have the power of 10 with 140 zeros, and love would have the power of 10 times 500 zeros. So that's a hell of a lot more zeros, which is, you know, a billion is way more than a million even. So, and that's just a 2-0 or 3-0 difference or something. So imagine 360 zeros different. So I feel like I'm understanding more, but it doesn't mean that this energy won't burn out my nervous system if I'm not able to, I don't want to say contain it or maintain it. I would say share it, give it away. So this is what I was talking about. I was trying to get through that crisis to see if I could get through it on my own-ish. You know, basically what happens is the nervous system short circuits and one has to start again from level of consciousness 0, which feels like death, but it's the death of the self, not death of whatever. So it's possible if one doesn't make this energy about oneself at all, maybe there's no death of the self necessary and it can be maintained. But that takes a lot of practice, or it's not even practice, it's learning, perceiving, and not actually making anything into a pattern, because it's the pattern that dies. So there is no pattern, there is no method, there is no formula. Another thing this love said in my brain, not even in words, it's just there in awareness, it said, love doesn't ask how. And anyway, stuff like that. I don't want to get into it too much because it's late and I need to go inside and do the relaxation audio and also put a few things in my calendar or I'm going to forget. And I do feel quite energized. I've been able to communicate. I was able to communicate in the way I wanted with my counselor, my mom, and then a friend last night, and then somebody today as well. So I feel that communication is being listened to. And another thing that I had an insight into in my brain is another human being listening through thought or listening through love? Are the words activating thought reflexes, or is it getting through the thought and, you know, one thought and then there's a space maybe, and then another thought? Does some of it get through that space and touch the nothingness of love, the emptiness? in emptiness, there is 100% energy. Everything exists in emptiness and comes out of emptiness and goes back into it. And I've gone back into it several times, and it's freaking scary, man. But this last time, I've learned through what I've sort of described and reading a bit of Dr. David Hawkins' work and Krishnamurti and a bit of Eckhart Tolle and a bit of Rupert Spira, I was able to not be afraid of that, which is important, because it's the fear of fear that is the problem. Fear isn't a problem. We make it into a problem, and as soon as we think it's a problem, we try to escape from it. And the thing is, if we don't observe it from a fearful place, observing fear from fear, that fear creates a separation that doesn't exist. It creates somebody looking at the fear instead of being embodied in that sensation of whatever. If one is embodied in that sensation and delabels it fear, doesn't even call it fear, is with it, it transmutes. If one is with it in emptiness, then it changes and it gets transformed and it goes away. But if we're not able to be with it, if it's too painful, then we do things like, eat or drink or sleep or watch movies, and we can still do those things. But if it's not for an escape, then it has a different quality, I guess. And I speak about this now, but there'll probably be a time, whenever, that I forget everything, because I do forget everything. It's not a pattern that can be learned and tried to uphold. Who's the one upholding it? It's the observer, as Krishnamurti would say. And there is no observer. There's observing, pure observation, without a formula or a pattern. So I was able to communicate pretty well today, and there was a bit of something that came up that I wasn't sure about, and I felt a bit of confusion and conflict over it, and I was able to communicate with a person who would be able to enlighten me about what was happening, and it went really well, to the point where they offered me to stay in their trailer sometime if I need some space. So that could be a good place for the next crisis, possibly, or a crisis. And they offered other stuff. So communicating from a place of love and curiosity versus, and having a dialogue versus being like, what are you doing? Like, it's a totally different quality. And I think sometimes I'm just not good at communicating. And the thing is, like, I have some pretty unbelievable things to say that I've said to myself, mostly. And now I'm saying it to other people, and it's not a matter of if they believe it or not. They're just listening. They're not saying, I don't believe that, so I believe you're crazy. But the thing is, I've already been diagnosed as crazy, so people can think that I'm crazy, and I am. And if one day I get carted to a psych ward being crazy, hey, that's just about starting back at zero again on the scale of consciousness and transcending the levels again. It's like, and I've talked about this before, I've probably said it all in so many different ways. I probably don't even need to talk about it anymore, but I want to say it again from this point of learning, to even to show that I've probably said the same thing 3 times over, but then I forget, and then I come to the same sort of insight again at a certain point. This whole thing is about discontinuity and not remembering and projecting patterns and creating habits and creating a self. It's about forgetting the self. And that's something I was realizing today, is that there's a thing to this whole selfless service. So I wanted to learn if I could survive the crisis on my own, but I also realized that sort of living to survive a crisis is serving a self. though maybe one day I can share that so others can be helped by that. But then the other thing is, like, I really do need to get to a point of embodying selfless service and embodying love. Unconditional love, really, and transcending those lower energies. So those lower energies really do want attention, and they want to create chaos. They want to reaffirm that there is a separate self there. And that makes the self feel like it's not alone. But the truth is, we are alone. Maybe we're not ultimately alone. Maybe when enough of us are able to realize the truth of who we are, that we're human beings, and the power of love channeled through a human being is huge. And thinking in terms of even wanting to uphold it permanently, that is the self. The self wants permanence. The self wants security and reassurance of continual improvement. But this love is causeless, so you can't ask for it. It just comes at some times, and it's there for however long it seems to be, and then maybe it's gone. So something I learned through this last crisis, I didn't really experience that much depression, because I feel depression is a phenomena of the self judging low energy states. Whereas if one is with the low energy states and emptiness, one isn't judging it, it's just there. I laid down, watched Netflix for days, and I didn't feel depressed about it. I just did it. And then went on my way. So even now, I don't want to say there's a self. There's an awareness that there's an elevated energy. Just like there was awareness that my energy was low, so I laid down and rested and recuperated and watched a semi-positive and not too violent show on Netflix. And yeah, so I'm wondering, will I be able to sleep tonight? Last night, I couldn't sleep. I feel like the more I communicate from this high energy, it might make it harder and harder to sleep. So I might have to spend some time just sitting around in the dark room in order to lower the energy. It could be finding out how much I can share that energy. Like, I don't need to keep anything for myself. I realize that I don't need anything. I need food, clothing, and shelter, but everything else, like, I would want others to feel uplifted. And I was really helped by a conversation I had with my friend at the coffee shop last night. He's just a very positive person, and he was talking about how he empowers people and inspires people. I don't think he even used that word, but empowered them with how much love he has. And so just having that conversation with him, just listening to how he talked, I think really sparked it sparked my brain, and my brain cells learned something, which translated into the next day. So I do want to spend more time with that person, because I learn from positive people and everybody. And the thing is that everybody has this love, this capacity. I think that's one of the mistakes we make sometimes when we first are acquainted with it. When it first tries to make our acquaintance, we feel like, I am special. I am so powerful, because the ego structures get inflated. Just like when the energy goes away, we think, my life sucks, I'm this sucks, I'm depressed. It has nothing to do with the I. There is no I there. There's no invisible ghost inside of us. We are a human being, and the capacities that we have, we're not even aware of, because we're so busy occupied with this little illusory vibration of words. And so, yeah, I'm feeling like, oh yeah, I did have to take half a Zopicon last night to sleep. I woke up, I felt kind of groggy, and I felt like I didn't have enough sleep. But then I took 2 or 3, like 1,500 or 1,000 milligrams of tyrosine. I took 2 SAMe, 400 milligrams, and I took maybe 2 uridine, 500 milligrams, and then I had coffee today for the first time in over a month, so I'm really energized. I could do that to energize myself these next few days. I've kind of planned a lot with different people, so I don't know how long I can keep that up. Maybe I need to plan a rest day in there. Maybe Thursday. We'll see. I really don't know. I feel like at this energy that I feel right now, I could burn out quite quickly. So, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes when my brain gets too energized, eventually it sees something in the future that it doesn't want to know. But maybe it has to see that. Maybe when one brain sees that, other brains see it too, and then we can work together to solve it in time. I don't know, I don't want to make it about a self. So yeah, it was a good day. I hope I can sleep. I'm supposed to go to family constellation meetup tomorrow, and I think it would be good to go because of how I learned there from the lady who's really intuitive. So, we'll see. Thanks for listening. Just saw the clock say 11:11. So I made it downtown and traffic wasn't too bad. There was an accident at some point, but I managed to get around it. And parking was only $7.25. I was gonna maybe take public transit from a certain point, but the weather's a little rainy, so I decided to take the chance that it wouldn't be event parking rate at like $25. So I'm going to go to the family constellation meetup and bring the intention of healing humanity at the level of consciousness. The consciousness that we all share, where we believe we're separate entities and we're in conflict with our self inside when there is no self inside, and that feeling that there is a separate self inside is what makes us feel that we need to move about based on conflict instead of effortless perception of the beauty of the moment, the beauty of being alive as a human being. So yeah, a lot was coming to mind as I was driving. And so there's a bit of a thing about, do I talk to myself about this stuff, or do I do all these things that I've planned right now? And I've planned quite a bit of stuff in these next few days. I had a weird sleep. I would have like psychotic dreams where I felt like I was like being pinned down and stuff, and felt like I wasn't sleeping very well. But I'd rather the psychotic stuff be in dreams while I'm sleeping. And I was having a bit of trouble sleeping because I only took 5 sunflower lecithin, because the night before I was trying to swallow the 10 sunflower lecithin, and eventually one got caught in my throat, and it took a while for peristalsis to put it down into my stomach, and it was a bit painful. So I took only 5, and I ended up only taking 1 melatonin because I couldn't find the other one. I put them on my bed to take the sublingual melatonin and then fall asleep, but I couldn't find the second one, so I thought, well, I must have ate it, I don't remember. And then I saw it there in the morning, so I fell asleep with less stuff. I didn't take Zopicone where I did the night before. And in the night when I was feeling like I wasn't sleeping very well, I was thinking, I'm not gonna get up and go to this thing tomorrow. But noise upstairs kind of woke me up, and I felt rested, like I don't need as much sleep right now. So I do need to be aware and maybe wear the orange glasses more, because the next couple days I need to wake up. Tomorrow I might wake up early to meet a friend, maybe, and then the next day to get my car fixed. I have to drop it off, and maybe the next day. So I was really trying to make myself sleep a lot for the last number of months, and I was sleeping a lot. So I'm just wondering about experimenting with not sleeping as much and doing more, because now there's that energy there, but there's a chance it could burn out my brain and cause a worse crisis next time. Though I did have speeded up times in the previous months, I remember, but I was trying to make myself sleep more. So yeah, we'll see how it works. But oh, the sun's coming out. I'm talking to myself. So yeah, I'm feeling more selfless, like empowering others, helping others, being kind to others, whereas before I was in this sort of self-centered state. And again, thinking that I want this to continue and get better and better is the self. The self wants more, the self wants continuity, the self wants continual growth, the self wants to accumulate. So this whatever state, it's a really high energy state, it feels like a state of love, won't last. And that's not a problem, because the problem is thinking in terms of things lasting. When nothing lasts, every moment is new and changing, and the brain needs to be able to keep up with perceiving something new. So we can't perceive how everything's changing every moment, but we can perceive something new every moment. And because there is something new in every moment. Like every moment, every square centimeter of space has more energy than the known universe. So even looking at a square centimeter of space for the rest of one's life, one couldn't even fathom or grasp or see all the beauty in it. So it's about being awake versus being blind. I think, Sean Blackwell is right. It is an awakening process, but there are lower levels that. It's funny, I communicated in a certain way with people, and that was more empowering. And yeah, I'm at a place where I'm not afraid of what I'm communicating, or afraid of sharing what I think happened in my own subjective experience, whatever that means. So yeah, lots to be shared, but yeah, I'll keep in contact with myself. And it's not myself. I feel like it's love. So we can speak as love, we can listen to love, which is emptiness. And that's what helped me fall asleep last night. Instead of thinking I need to fall asleep, or will I sleep, or did I take enough sunflower lecithin to sleep, whatever. And I only took half a trazodone, I didn't take a whole one. like the night before, I realized I approached it more as going into emptiness. And as soon as I saw it that way, as soon as I changed my perspective of what sleep is, then I pretty much fell asleep right away. So it wasn't resisting it. And one can go into emptiness at any moment. Like, going into emptiness is dying to the accumulation. And yeah, so at some point I'll get organized. I do have quite a few things to catch up on, and now it seems like the energy is there in order to do those things. So this is a long meetup. Last time there were breaks, but only for snacks. Nobody left, but I might leave at a certain point. We'll see. But really, I want to learn from this lady. I learn by watching people, positive people or intuitive people. So I want to learn what she does, because I think there's application to help people like me who've been labeled. It's a misunderstanding, really. It's a miscommunication, misunderstanding. It's a misunderstanding of who and what we are. And sometimes one goes back into forgetfulness, and that doesn't necessarily have to be a problem, because one is really surrounded by this forgetfulness and this blindness. So to even be able to pop out of it for a second is a miracle, really. Because this whole design of society, if we really knew who we are, would change really quickly too. Wouldn't take much. So, well, it's already changed. There is another world where it's quite fabulous and beautiful. I've seen it. So it's already happened. But, we don't all exist in the same world. We might have all these bodies walking around, but we think there's 7 billion people on the planet, but we'll never be in the presence of 7 billion people. So do we really know that there are 7 billion people? Are there 7 billion bodies? But most of those bodies are asleep. So are they really fully embodied as human beings? And I think everyone can be. All 7 billion bodies can be, but we're programmed to be in conflict with each other, and that wastes a lot of time and energy. We don't know how to cooperate. We don't know how to operate based on being one mind, like ants and bees. We're destroying the bees. Apparently they're on the endangered species list or something. I saw that. I don't know if it's true. But, the bees are their environment. If there's a proper environment, there will be bees. Even if every single bee dies, if their environment is restored, all of a sudden they'll be back. Matter forms out of light. As light slows down its vibration. So there's bees that are based on light, and when they slow down and become material, then they're back. It's not really that mysterious. There are many levels. The quantum is based on collapsing the wave function of possibility. Well, there are many things that are at this point impossible that are possible, because if one thinks in terms of collapsing a wave function of possibility, the possibility is based on what we believe is possible. But what is possible is way beyond what human beings believe is possible. There's many impossible possibilities just waiting to be made possible. Like that guy running the 4-minute mile and then everyone running it. That's a pretty significant and insignificant thing. So that's why it's important to keep going with the possibility that bipolar is an awakening process, or a process of going between being fully awake and going back to sleeping. And I think that is related to heat and light. So that's one of the reasons we speed up in summer, because it's warmer, metabolism, light, we can see more information, and our ability to perceive is based on the light of the moment, how much light there is. In the dark, we can't see anything. And if we're in the dark long enough in sensory deprivation, we'll start to see things. We'll start dreaming in a way. So anyway, I could go on and on about all this forever, and there's so many layers to it. And that's the thing. Life becomes so fascinating. Living one's own life becomes so fascinating. And it's learning every moment, and it's not like, oh, what do I do? It's not about believing, it's about live. Time to go. I stayed for 2 constellations at the family constellation meetup, but I left at the 3rd because I felt like leaving. And now I'm going to meet somebody about this kind of supporting others who go through this stuff. So I'm not sure what will come of that, but I really hope, in a way, to find someone to co-create with who has the skills that I don't have, like being linear and practical, but is co-creative. So we'll see how that goes. I'm feeling a little bit tired because I didn't have the greatest sleep. It was not really the nicest dreams, but you know, when we share one consciousness as humanity, something that happens to anybody happens within consciousness, so we can be aware of it in the aware space where consciousness plays out. I realized when I was at the group, there's no such thing as each other. There's each same. There is no other. To make something other is to make a mistake, to mistake reality, to alienate some part of what is trying to meet us from our consciousness, and divide consciousness up from the oneness that it is. I have a lot of different energy going through the body today. In my stomach, feels like it's kind of on fire. Hope I can keep swallowing all these supplements and they don't eventually become hard to swallow. What can happen is they can become hard to swallow because of the change in the field of gravity. When one is lighter, the way things go down the tube, they can sort of not go down as fast because one is lighter, and when one is lighter, gravity isn't as heavy, so gravity's not pulling it down as much, so the peristalsis of the body doesn't work the same. And this is how sometimes we can manifest these physical symptoms when we're changing states of consciousness. And since we identify with the body, we think, I have this illness, but we don't realize that when one becomes lighter, but people who one is interacting with are heavier, then it sort of changes relative speed of consciousness, which changes the speed of metabolism. And that's part of how some people don't eat that much and they still gain a lot of weight, because how we are all metabolizing the subjective experience of time is different, is relative. So our speeds of energy, our speed of vibration, it's different, it changes. Sometimes we feel so-called good, and sometimes we feel not so good and heavy. We know how feeling not good feels heavy, it feels like we have less energy. So the more energy we have, the faster the speed that energy is. It's closer to the speed of light, which the speed of light isn't probably even a speed. It's a vibration. So it's an up-down is the speed of light, and it goes up and down faster, so that means it goes faster because it's going up and down faster, but it's really just up-down. And so it's sort of all relative to the speed of light. So we have these bodies, but we're not the body. We're not a separate self, so yeah, it doesn't really matter, but just trying to speak from this level of vibration that will at some point change, and I'll feel more dense, more like a separate self at some point, and that will be painful. But because it is painful to live in a non-actuality. We're all one consciousness, and we're acting like we're all separate consciousnesses, which is felt as a separate me. Like a separate ball of consciousness is the separate little me, but there's just consciousness. There's no separate me. So when we separate ourselves, that feels painful. And when we act based on separation, that feels painful at some point. Or we numb it out or escape from it. And none of this is wrong. To see people express emotion in this family constellation meetup is really beautiful. Like, human emotion is beautiful, and seeing people in those emotive states just really makes me feel a lot of compassion, because they're looking for healing, and everyone in the group is participating in healing. So it is really beautiful. Yeah, I'm sure more things came to mind, but I wasn't able to write them down. But I mentioned in my intention to be able to hone whatever gift might be available. But really the gift is the gift of presence, of being present, of being part of existence. We really want to prove that I exist as a separate entity, but you can never prove that. We really want to prove that there's this separate entity inside, but really we are one with existence. It's not that I exist as a separate entity, but existence is. And manifests as the human world through human beings. I'm really seeing the common humanity lately, that we're all human beings. And there's a lot of capacity in the brain when we're not trying to build up an illusion. And it's not wrong, it's temporary. And it's a beautiful illusion. Yeah, so I feel like perception is more focused outward. I'm looking around, everything looks beautiful. And then perceiving the light playing out as the beauty of form is very energizing. And today I could see a light aura around the facilitator, like about like this big, all the way around. It was sort of greenish, fluorescent green looking. That was cool. So I think these videos help to illustrate the difference when someone has a bipolar label between being in a state where everything is fine, the brain is sped up, and hopefully it shows that one can integrate with that, in that it doesn't become something dysfunctional. Like, I've never gone gambling. Actually, I did one time years and years ago, and I won the jackpot at a casino on a penny slot, and that was the only time. I was just being silly, but it's because there were people I knew in there, and I was just like, hey. And then I don't go out drinking or partying. Being into health and wellness is really helpful. I use that energy to learn. I use it to be out in nature, and things that are life affirming, life positive. And then that energy is channeled into things that are positive. And I've learned not to get too taken with the visions, because I can't do it all myself. Right now my brain is swirling a little bit about putting together some resources for people in the community with a label, because when my brain is sped up and I'm feeling well, I feel very fortunate to have learned what I've learned, and there's so much more to learn. And that's part of what this state feels like. Every moment there's an opportunity to learn or see something new. And I feel like I'd like to share some of the resources that I've utilized to be able to get to this point. And a lot of what I've talked about is how the brain has capacities and we don't understand them, and they do have value, but the mainstream way of functioning doesn't see them and recognize them. And so we're sort of left out to the margins, and it's very hard to know how to harness those gifts and things like that. And I haven't really talked that much about the sad fact that many of us are short on cash and maybe want to lose weight. And they're not as much like, I want to be spiritual or learn about my brain cells. Those very fundamental needs, according to Maslow's needs, are needed to be met. And if one has a little bit more money and a little bit more energy and health, it's a lot easier to go out and pursue those other things. And I think I wrote something about that on my blog, like going out and living one's dreams when one can. And it's not always possible, and there are hard times. So a lot of times when I get this energy, I feel like, I want to create some big vision. When lately I'm realizing, and it's taken me so long to realize and there's so much more to realize and then forget and re-realize and not even realize that it's a re-realization. Feels like the first time. just sharing with the people one loves and cares about in one's daily life. So how can I help my friends? Because I've realized that, and I've talked about this, how the process I went through lately seemed very self-centered. But it was self-centered in that I needed to learn how to deal with the process of crisis where the self comes back very strongly. And I had some of that a little bit before I went away to the island. Managed to get away. It went away for a couple weeks, but then it was about a struggle from June 20th to maybe July 4th. So that's, 2 weeks as opposed to 3 months, So that's great. So now I have more time and energy to do something with that energy. So what am I going to do? Yeah, so what I'm learning by my current work situation, since it's such a great environment, is I'm able to really connect with people better. I've done peer support in the community, and I find it so difficult because people are often in not really ideal circumstances, and maybe they're living with their parents and they don't want to, or they just got diagnosed and they're really struggling. Whereas at the other situation, it's a really nice environment. So even if maybe people don't have the greatest living situation, in that scenario where it's really a great environment, maybe not everyone experiences it like that, but I certainly have. It's easier to connect with people. And I've connected with people all along and made friends, but this is sort of connecting with people that maybe we wouldn't necessarily connect as much. But in this role, it's sort of a role to connect. And I'm finding it quite fun. So I feel like I'm at a point where I don't really need anything. I need to be outside, I need silence sometimes, and I kind of need my own space at some point because I don't find my living situation ideal. I closed the vents, the heat vents, and the air conditioning's not coming downstairs, and yesterday I got back and it wasn't ice cold. That's the problem when I'm in a state of anger and it's hard to implement solutions. The solution was to close those vents, which I could have done months ago, because even in the winter when the heat was on, not enough heat really got downstairs and I found it cold. Well, I guess closing the vents wouldn't have helped then, but now since there's air conditioning, it did help. Though when I slept, I woke up sweaty, which never happens, and I think because the air wasn't circulating. And what I'm trying to say is that I'm really seeing the daily living of some of this, and I feel like there's a subtle shift that's really big and profound, and that is that my sort of love of understanding and information and making meaning and visions or whatever, and hoping things to be better on this grand scale is being replaced with a love of human beings. Could it be true? And everyone loves people, or not everyone, but I don't know if I've really been a people lover per se. I'm kind of like a loner in a way, but I have friends and everything. But some people I've met just say, I just love getting to know people and meet people and learn about people, and I've never really felt that way. I do enjoy that, but I didn't feel that as a movement of what I wanted to do. It naturally happens that we can't help but meet people and talk with people, but I never felt like, oh, I just love getting to know people for whatever reason. I've probably felt more like I don't really connect well with most people because I don't watch TV, Sometimes I'm on diet plans that are pretty extreme, like raw vegans, so that limits going out and being social. Or I don't drink, I don't do drugs except for pharmaceuticals. And I'm not saying those things are bad, but those can limit the social circle and things like that. And I don't really watch too many movies. Sometimes I watched Blade Runner 2049, and I liked that better than the first one. The first one was kind of like just kind of creepy, but not like in a scary way, just kind of like creepy, like heebie-jeebies creepy. But apparently in its day it was quite the thing. I heard that from a friend. But I liked the new one because it does seem like a possible future, whereas that old one, we're in that time now, and it's like it's nothing like that. So it was just kind of weird. And I think I talked about watching a movie called Brain on Fire, where this woman basically becomes catatonic and she seems psychotic, and they're trying to diagnose her with schizophrenia, and the parents insist on her not going to the psych ward, and they eventually find that through a brain biopsy that she has NMDA receptor sensitivity in the brain or something, and like her right brain was on fire, like inflammation, and with treatment she was able to get better. But it was a process of recovery. And in the end, it mentioned something like how many people diagnosed with psychosis and like catatonic schizophrenia might have this NMDA receptor kind of thing going on in the body. Or there could be something else going on biologically that we're unaware of. That would be the biological test for schizophrenia or whatever. And then maybe it's not that at all if there's right treatment, but they treat it with psych drugs if it's schizophrenia. But they're saying it's a biological thing, and they're correcting this chemical imbalance, which could have a truth. But what I'm saying is there's many biological illnesses that mimic psychotic disorder. I know somebody with Wilson's disease, which is a genetic disorder, hard to diagnose, that usually manifests in the late teens, early 20s, and basically they start acting crazy. And this person I know, they thought she was on drugs or something. Took quite a long time, and she's like falling apart physically as well. And eventually they did some kind of liver like scope in the belly and noticed inflamed liver, and they thought maybe it was alcohol related. But eventually somehow, maybe I don't know how many years it took, she was diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder, Wilson's disease, and it's hard to treat, but it is treatable. That was probably like 15 years ago. But they could have just said she had psychosis. They would have eventually known maybe that it wasn't that, but at first they didn't know what the hell it was. Thought it was alcohol and drugs. And how many people, like some people look like they're on alcohol and drugs and they're not. There are some. So yeah, there could be things that we don't even know about that are causing these problems. And there are books about all these different medical tests that should be given to rule certain things out. But we're not given the full workup. We are given an MRI, sometimes like to check for tumors and things, sometimes an EEG, but we're not given like a full workup that a naturopath might do to rule out all different things. It's just a few main tests, but there could be anything like 20 fundamental things they could check. Like sometimes thyroid problems can lead to people acting kind of psychotic-ish. And then you correct the thyroid problem, they're not. But if you diagnose them with a mental illness, put them on psych meds, and then once that happens, usually anytime we have any kind of complaint, it's passed off as, it's probably your mental illness or the side effects of the meds, and problems of the body aren't looked into properly. So, and she raised that point, like how many people diagnosed with psychotic disorders or schizophrenia or bipolar, I don't know if she mentioned bipolar, have some kind of biological problem for real, not the chemical imbalance problem that they try to say.
And I think she has a book called Brain on Fire, and that could be an interesting read if I had time to read it. But somebody else told me to read the book by Jill Bolte Taylor, I think is her name, about how she had a stroke. It's called My Stroke of Insight. I have seen the TED Talk. It's really good, but I haven't read the book. And I don't have time. I was looking at my book by Dr. Mercola, Fat for Fuel, and then I accidentally clicked on a different book, and it was The Possibility Principle that I haven't finished reading, but I like it because it's talking about mental illness a little bit and talking about possibility, and not many people make that leap. And then it was talking about Alfred Korzybski E prime, which is English prime, which is using English without the verb to be, because it sort of solidifies things into subject object. So instead of saying I am tired, I would say I feel tired today because I worked a long shift. Whereas if it's like I am tired, then it's like puts it into alwaysness. So I was thinking that would be better almost than CBT, because that'd be like, I am bad. Well, why don't you say I am good? Whereas just getting rid of, it could be called EBT, English Prime Behavioral Therapy.
All right, so I have to try a piece of this because I had sushi and I think I'm too full to eat the whole thing, but I need to eat it on the day that it was made, or the day that it's the freshest, at least to try. That's what I'm attempting to do here. Save this plastic knife. And this one's s'mores. And the guy was saying that they make them in a commissary kitchen, so they rent a full kitchen. And then I remembered, like, where did it, I was like, what's that mean? And then he told me he rents the commercial kitchen, like a share in it. And then I just realized now that the word commissary is familiar to me from watching Orange is the New Black. I think this might be the best donut I ever ate. I like the plain one better. Really good. So yeah, since officially realizing that I think I fell in love with humanity, and also I realized when I was driving that we need to fall in love with the sound of our own voice. And what I mean by that is our voice is used against us inside our heads as we experience it. And we usually often use our voice against ourselves out loud or each other out loud. We need to fall in love with it and speak from a place of love and speak lovingness and be surprised what we say ourselves, because it comes from emptiness. Love is emptiness, meaning it's not a particular form or a word or a concept. It's the unknown. And the unknown, I won't go into that, but what I wanted to say is that it might be time to start showing more of what it's like to be bipolar, in that I've shown what it's like, but I mean as participating more in life as it is, instead of sticking to the forests and sticking to trying to learn how to manage crisis, which I feel like I haven't completely mastered, but I've done it enough to know, okay, it's safe to go back into so-called reality for another round, another try, and show more of that. Though the only trouble with that is I do hang out with people a lot and I don't want to show them. So I've shown some of it, but I want to show maybe a different flavor. And I'll forget, for sure,
what I'm talking about now, but I feel like bipolar people can bring, at times, when they're not crashing, the possibility of a different kind of spirituality. A spirituality that can be really based on living life moment to moment. So instead of practicing being present and sitting there, being present while being fully engaged in life. So I'm going to try this myself. And there are times when I'm fully engaged in life, but I'm going to maybe try to show more of that, and maybe it will be a catastrophic failure, and that's okay, because it's just like the ABBA song, I Have a Dream. They say, if you see the wonder or the fairy tale, you can take the future, even if you fail. And if you're bipolar, you might know what that means. And we all have dreams, and we do get to live our dreams for sure, but it'd be nice to live them all here in our material, earthly existence. And that's why we get up and try again. And I had too much food today. I'm sitting on the can, and with my squatty potty, and it's kind of nice to just sit here and relax. Oh, I had to pee just a little bit more. And what was the other thing I was going to say? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Nothing is matter. Everything is energy. Everything is light. And matter is light slowing down enough so we can interface with it in a way that is more consistent and not so dreamlike. When really we're all made of dream stuff. And I think matter is waking up. Matter is trying to condense as the dream that we all dream together. You know, if you think about the lyrics in Michael Jackson's song, Heal the World, it is a place within our hearts. So I'm going to go do some other stuff now. Bye-bye then, good night. And yeah, I think bipolar people can show that it's fun to be alive and living each moment and not be consistent, be playful. And maybe when people see what we can bring, they'll protect us when our nervous systems crash and burn, and appreciate the energy that we're able to bring into the world by sacrificing ourselves and our bodies to be a temporary conduit of that energy. But it eventually burns us out, so take care of us when we're not doing well. And love us unconditionally. And because we're trying to help uncondition you to not be as consistent and rigid and programmed. But we don't know that that's what we're doing. Unfortunately, right now we think it is about our own awesomeness. But it's not. It's about the awesomeness within each human being that is there, that is covered up. And we get really excited when that first time that veil gets removed. And, you know, it doesn't mean you have to call us mentally ill and manic. We just get really excited. The brain gets really excited to be awake. The brain cells are celebrating. And then on the manifest human level, we celebrate inappropriately. But what is appropriate? Who decided that? And why do we all collectively conspire to today I got branched chain amino acid gummies because to slow down a mania, Dr. Peter Smith of balancingbrainchemistry.co.uk says take branched chain amino acids because it draws dopamine into the muscles. And that depletes the brain from the supply of amino acids needed to create dopamine in the brain. And that's why this is like a workout recovery type thing, because it helps build muscle. So the problem is I have unflavored branched chain amino acid powder, and it tastes like ass. Really does, unless you have juice, and I don't drink juice, so I don't generally have juice. This is more convenient than powder and juice, than ass powder and juice. So, and I generally don't have to take this. I've only taken it one time just to see what it would do. It did make me feel more in my body. I was hoping it would make me sleep that day. I absolutely couldn't sleep, and it didn't do that. But anyway, so I got the gummies. All I'll have to do is compare the dosages, so I might have to eat quite a few gummies in order to have the same effect. I didn't look at the non-medicinal ingredients, but they're not bad, actually. Though there is erythritol, so if I had to take a lot of this, it might make me really, really farty. I don't know if anyone has experienced that from erythritol, but it's better to fart than be so manic that it causes problems. And I was realizing too that the importance of transcending or ending the lower states of consciousness, the ones below the level 200 on Dr. David Hawkins' scale of consciousness, is that if we're fearful when the mania stops, then we end up in the hospital. If we're angry, we might end up in jail. You know, like, these things have consequences. So, yeah, I resolved a lot of the fear, and there's still more to go, of course, but I feel like I've learned so much, and I'm always learning. The brain cells are learning. The brain cells, when they learn, they make new connections. So it's not that there's this separate entity learning, but the brain cells are making new connections, and they're making fluid connections. They're making loose connections. They're making connections that can move with the moment, that they may not apply to the next moment. They may not ever apply again. So the moment is what changes the brain connections, and not the momentum of the self creating habits and projections to move according to motivations which are conditioned into us. They're not even human motivations. They're motivations of self-centeredness, which is competition against each other. Such a waste of energy. What could we create together if we were cooperating, if we were co-creating, if we were synchronizing, if we were synergizing? Like, man, we would be unstoppable. Yet everything would stop, because it's a movement of stillness and of still space, changing what manifests on the screen of still space. Anyway, got some stuff to do now that I won't complete that rhyme. I'm wearing my orange sunglasses like a good bipolar person. Human, I should say, not person. There's no such thing as person or personal. But it's 9:00 p.m. on the dot, and I'm wearing my orange glasses because Dr. Peter Smith, he recommends sleeping in a dark room for 8 hours or whatever, but he recommends blocking blue light with the amber glasses for a total of 10 to 12 hours, up to 14 hours if one is manic. So 10 to 12 hours of the combination of the two. So wearing these glasses for about 4 hours and sleeping 8 hours or something like that. For a while I was sleeping 12 hours, so I didn't really have to worry about the glasses. But now I'm sleeping from more like 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. and then I starting to sleep at 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. and then ending sleep around 7 or 8. So I'm sleeping like 6 to 8 hours, so I'm not getting enough blue blocking time. So I'm wearing the blue blockers and then I'll sleep for however long, and that'll give me a total of 11 hours because I'm planning to get up at 8 a.m. And yeah, so I might put my other pair of blue blockers in the car and see if I can drive with them at night. I know people can drive with the yellow glasses at night and they actually help with driving. I'm not sure about the amber ones, so we will see. Blue blockers. So I'm going to wear these and then be up for a bit, and I'm going to talk to my brain twin, and yeah. Last night I talked to my brain twin for 4 hours, and then I went to sleep around 2, and I definitely had what you might call psychosis in the night, and just laid there and waited it out. But it was uncomfortable for sure. There's like sensations moving through my heart and body and scary thoughts a bit, but I waited it out until all the fear left and then got up, and so everything I was saying yesterday I forget anyway, but it doesn't look like I'll be able to do that. I'm not really feeling sad about it. I'm just sort of like, man, this is hard. And so I'm gonna eat more of these donuts to help. And when it was happening in the night, I was like, oh damn it, I need to get my car fixed tomorrow. How am I gonna get up? But I'm up, I'm showered. I'm gonna drop my car off in about half an hour and hopefully renew my insurance tomorrow, and then all the things that are time sensitive are done, and maybe I can just crash and just stay home and do nothing. Read, study. I don't know. Tonight I'm going to take a sleeping pill. And go back to trying to sleep like 10, 12 hours. Because I've been only sleeping probably 6. Last night maybe 4. I feel awake, but it's not good for the brain. And then this morning I took some D-serum, and then took my supplements, and I took less dopamine supplements today. No tyrosine. I'm gonna not drink coffee again. I think it just sped me up too much and it fried me. But I'm not really feeling fried. It was scary and it lasted quite a long time last night. I don't know how long, but I feel like I can function, which is good. Back to the drawing board. That's a good marshmallow. What a day. I've been crying and I'm PMSing, but that's not the most of it. I think I already mentioned how I had a shitty ass sleep. Yesterday I was flying high and like, yeah, I'm gonna get engaged, yeah, I'm gonna be social, I'm gonna do all that I can with people, I love people, and I'm like, brain implosion. And last night when I was sleeping, I had like the thing happen where I could feel my heart beating. It was more subtle, but I could feel the energy moving through my heart, and there's pain and kind of like fear and the sensation of death and awfulness. And I went to bed at 2, woke up at 7, but I was up before that with that feeling. And then when that feeling was going on, I sensed, how the hell am I going to get my car in today? Like, am I going to have to sleep in or take a sleeping pill? Or I don't even know what time it is because it's pitch black in there. I wasn't looking at the time. And so, at least when it stopped, I was able to get up and just shower and drop off my car. And then they don't have the coolant or whatever, refrigerant to fix the AC. And I just like, oh shit, I need that car fixed so I can take off. Like, I don't know if I can stand it here. But being in nature, looking at this water right now and hearing all the different birds, especially that one that was like was up like that. It's like, never heard that one before this year. Wasn't here last year. Last year this time I was in California. So yeah, I just have to think about my happy place. And, you know, I just really can't say anything about what to do. Just do whatever and talk about things at the time, but don't talk about tomorrow. Because there is no tomorrow. And so I know I need more sleep tonight. I'm going to take a sleeping pill. I don't care if I sleep like 20 hours. And, you know, I think, oh, I have more energy. I didn't need as much sleep. Like, you could think of this as like typical bipolar thinking or whatever. But I was sleeping like 6 hours. You know, it wasn't like 2, which some people can have happen. So yeah, I wanted to test out, can I do 6 hours sleep and get more done? Shit, it's Monday. I have my online group at 6:30, so I can't just hang out at this park. So forgetful. So yeah, I don't know how long that test worked of waking up at, say, 9 a.m. or 7 a.m. or 8 a.m. and sleeping at 12 or 1 or 11. And I know that's not quite enough sleep, but I was feeling wide awake. You know, I woke up and I felt wide awake, and that's the thing. One goes into a space of feeling wide awake no matter what. And it's kind of nice after sleeping for 12 or 13 hours for months. And so that didn't last very long.
that was only a few days. So I don't know if, since I laid low for so many months through the last period of time, which could have been energetic had I been roaming around, but I was choosing to spend time in nature like I am right now. I think it could be possible that my sort of dopamine self-doership circuits are quite weak. And they could get blown out a lot easier. So I might have to really be careful about that, even more so. So it's not a failure because everything is an experiment, and I was going to maybe experiment, unless I forgot, about doing more, engaging more with life, like human life. And I didn't forget, because today my brain just imploded. When I got back from dropping off my car, I was trying to write this thing, but I felt so tired. I laid on the couch, started crying. Like, I'm not resisting any of these experiences, I'm just describing them. And then, I'm closing my eyes, and the thing that happened on the island, kind of when I first got there, happened, which is I can see flashes of images, like consciousness, like awareness is going somewhere else in the world and just taking a snapshot of different places. Or I don't know if they're memories or past life memories, or we share the same human brain, we share the same human consciousness. It's all like one field, so the brain can go do those types of things. But why does it do it? I don't understand. Like, why does it want me to lay on the couch for hours and see people and things and stuff? Like, I was listening to something on my phone, but I was thinking of grabbing my phone and like just keeping my eyes closed and describing what I was seeing. Sometimes there'd be a gap of like a minute or two before I saw anything, but sometimes it'd be sort of like one thing and then another. Sometimes it was like a full person and they sort of pop into view, and then sometimes it's like I saw like part of an elevator door. I saw like a white truck, and then somebody opened the door, like just sort of half on the driver's side of like a white SUV or van or something, and I saw people clear as day, and I don't know what it is that I'm seeing or what the hell the point of it is. But I feel that if one doesn't lay down and rest and allow the brain to travel or integrate or do whatever the fuck it's doing, that sometimes I might imagine I know what it is doing, that shit comes and interferes in life. So like, if I wasn't laying down and letting it do its process, I was walking about, like, that stuff would be interfering, and then I could be responding to it superimposed on life, and then thinking that it had something to do with the moment, and it doesn't, and then I get all freaked out and then end up in the psych ward. So I just have to lay down and let that process wear itself out. And it did. I was probably laying there for probably like 4 hours, which was the time I didn't sleep, right? So it's like dream stuff, or it's the light realm, and like the brain wants to go there. It doesn't want to be in this heavy, dense reality. Hence the desire for suicide sometimes. But that's not the answer. And I'm experiencing this not as like a mood, even though it appears as a mood. It's like, I don't understand. Like, I've made sense of a lot of it with myself, but it's not like I remember anything I say. Sometimes I feel like this is how people with dementia might start to feel, but I don't want to say that type of word. Oh my god, there's the smallest bunny I've ever seen. Oh my god, he's so cute.
So it makes it impossible to plan anything. A friend said, oh, do you want to come downtown on like sometime this week? I'm like, I don't know, like, how do I say? I don't know if I'm going to sleep well tonight, or I will. And then I'm supposed to maybe play tennis tomorrow. I might feel fine tomorrow. I don't know, but or go to the beach. It's not going to be that nice, but you know, I sort of had plans to be more social, and then like maybe I can only hang out in the park with nature. So I haven't really been coming to this park, but I could definitely do that. But my car has this like stick shaker feature if you're departing from the lane, and they had to do a factory reset on the settings, and now it's like shaking if I'm not even close to the lines. It's so, I don't know if like a car with all these freaking electronics is good for me, because electronics screw up around me. So it's just gonna be one annoying thing after another, and I shouldn't say that, but that's what it is so far. Like, I don't need anything. I don't want anything. Maybe I want my sanity. I'm tired of this. One thing I am learning though is to keep this shit to myself. I talk to my friends about struggles, but I don't say, oh, I just spent time crying. Well, maybe I do. I don't even remember. I don't remember anything. When I was laying there and like seeing those things, like I'm always trying to learn, no matter what, even if it's shit. I felt like when I could see stuff, my body wasn't there in a way. And then when it stopped, when it wasn't black or seeing something, I clicked back into my body, and it was like, so like whatever is leaving the body, like it's trying to leave the body. So I don't know if the goal is to like get out of the body or to try to be in the body, like, you know. And then I realized that this has always been happening my whole life. I just didn't notice. It wasn't really so pronounced, but it's just kind of frustrating to feel like the social pressure of, oh, you know, get your 9-to-5 job, work, get your this, get that, be happy. And it's like, I don't even know what's going to happen the next day. Like, there's no accumulation, and the world's not designed for that. It's not just designed to get up in the morning, shower, and like walk around and see what the hell's happening. That's called mania. That's called crazy. And then today I didn't even think to maybe take some extra taurine or take some extra glycine because I was feeling like I was crying or whatever. It's just, I could try to remember those things, but it's hard. and it's like too cold where I live. As I had a space heater pointing right at me, laying on the couch, freezing, I'm shaking. I finally warm up. I just don't think I can be inside again. You know, so this is what it's like. And I don't think it was like this before. It's getting kind of worse because I don't like where I'm living. And then the more I don't like it, the more it traps me, because if I'm not in a good state of mind, it's really hard to create my way out of the situation. So it's like chicken or egg. And I remember when it first happened 7 years ago, I really wanted to leave, but I got crushed by gravity and I couldn't even move. It wouldn't let me leave. And I got carted off to the psych ward. So I don't want that to happen again. And now I don't have a mental health team to go to, so my only way back in is a fucking psych ward, and I don't want to go. It's like, how does one get out? I'm just gonna leave, like, once my air conditioning is done. I don't know if I'll leave right away, but maybe September 1st, maybe August 1st. You know, California's a higher vibe, I'm sorry, but it is. And I don't want to keep like vibing really high and like enjoying my friends, which I love, enjoying, you know, most aspects of my life. And then I go home and the vibe is like this, and my brain has to implode in order to be able to, I don't know, it's nobody's fault. You know, it just would be like quantum physicists trying to teach Newtonian physics to 8-year-olds. It's just, it's just not right. It doesn't vibe, you know? So I think walking a lot of this off will be good, and I think I need to realize that it is going to be a hard 3 months, whether that 3 months starts July 20th or it started late June before I left for the island. Probably then, so, you know, I'm only about halfway through. It's going to be challenging. I'm going to have to lay there sometimes like a slug and wait until all of a sudden I feel like I can get up. You know, I'm worried that one day I'll just be catatonic and dragged into the psych ward and electroshocked. I don't really fear that because I feel like I have it pretty much under control, but I don't know. In some respects, I don't like where I live. I just don't. And I'm sorry to anybody who might be offended by that, but, you know. So much for people. Back to nature. To my class tonight, knock myself out. You know, my brain twin and I, we got into some pretty deep stuff. He said a lot of the stuff that I've talked to myself about. He's like, I think this process is death. I'm like, that's exactly it. That's what I've been talking to myself about. It's death. I'm sick of dying. I'll just keep these types of, moodiness stuff to myself, but I want to talk to myself about it and as it and with it, because that's what's happening. And what am I supposed to do? Just walk in the forest all day fucking long? Tomorrow, in between crying and freaking out, I'm going to renew my car insurance, and once my air conditioning in my car gets fixed, I might just get a job. Like, I just need somebody to tell me what to do, to cooperate with something like that somebody's building, because I can't organize shit. All I can do is kind of feed myself, go on bursts of being social and driving around and singing, walk in parks, talk to myself, which I might have already said and I forgot already. I'm okay with forgetting, but it's kind of like, I don't know. One forgets, but one also knows what one doesn't want to do. Anyway, I'm gonna go home, do my online class, go to sleep. It's been a shit day, but I feel fine right now. Maybe tomorrow I'll sit in the infrared sauna. I think that helps, because it warms me up, gets rid of some toxins from my body. Glad I have myself to listen to myself, because I don't have a mental health center. This is really dicey. Don't have a safe place to live that I like, that isn't freezing fucking cold. And then I close the air conditioning vents, it's so stuffy. And I have my window taped up so I can't open it in the bedroom. So I'm just getting frustrated because I try really hard and it's just annoying. It's really annoying. And I think I have it pretty good, so I feel really bad for other people who deal with this. I'm one of the lucky ones, and it's still really hard. I honestly don't know how much longer I want to do this. And in a way, I'd be happy if the universe intervened and just took me out, so I didn't have to. I really shouldn't say that out loud, but if I try to take myself out, I'll probably just end up in this stupid psych ward on ECT in a lands of pain, jump off a bridge, so people just don't understand that they don't understand who and what they are, and I don't fucking know either. No, but I'd like to have a conversation about it so we can talk about it. Not people tell me you're crazy, mentally ill, bipolar. There's a world of light, like there's another fucking world. It's so goddamn obvious. If other people would wake up, we could all live there and be happy. But no, I gotta come back to this physical plane, walk around like an idiot, not knowing what I'm doing because people who think they know me want me here. Just so they can know in their mind that I'm alive. But I'm not. For their own comfort. Well, this isn't comfortable. So they can continue to willing to hope that I'll be a fucking drone one day. Like everyone else that's able to do that. And you know what? I don't know how people are able to do that. I used to be able to. I had a paper route when I was 5. I babysat when I was 10. I've been working since I was 5 years old. Like, I'm on early retirement, people. Well, that's my anger, and that's what I'm going to use Byron Katie's process of the work on. My brain twin was talking about it and saying it was helpful, and sometimes when I'm vibing high, I don't think I need that kind of shit. But there are definitely some negative beliefs operating, obviously, around this dynamic. I just really don't like the whole, you be happy the way we imagined your life to be for you. Like, that's fucking bullshit. If you're gonna have that perspective towards your child, do not procreate. I'm sure as hell not gonna procreate.